MultimediaJay Radio Style Theater presents the 222 Bot.
MultimediaJay Radio Style.
Good morning, Internet, or at least it's morning when I'm recording this. I don't get the opportunity very often to record in the morning on a weekday, but today, having that extra day off, I decided to... Well, no, actually. If I sound like I just rolled out of bed and just started recording, you'd be partially right. I at least had breakfast before firing up the microphone, but when I wake up first thing in the morning and I see news like this, everything waits, or almost everything waits until I take care of it. So I have things to take care of today. I've got chores to do that I didn't do over the weekend because it's a long weekend for me, and errands to run that I didn't run over the weekend because it's a long weekend for me. But before any of that takes place, we need to talk about a big news story that just came up. It's kind of old news by now. It's from yesterday, actually. It went to ZDNet, and now it's going around, and I found out about it this morning. The Screensavers is coming back after however long the hiatus has been, just about 10 years or so. It was canceled in, 2005 or so? What am I doing? I mean, I've got Wikipedia articles going all over the place over here. Yes, 2005, right in time. When was it canceled? I didn't watch the Screensavers in its final days before becoming Attack of the Show, but March 28th, 2005. So the show's been dead for about a decade, and now at the 10-year anniversary of TWiT, or the 10-year TWiT event, however the heck you say, however you want to say it or refer to it as, Leo Laporte mentioned that the Screensavers is being resurrected as a TWiT show, and it's going to be called The New Screensavers. First off, as one of my former bosses would have called it, the CNN headline is mixed opinions on the relaunch of the Screensavers, but we'll get to that. If you don't know what the Screensavers is, or you're too young to remember the Screensavers, you're definitely really young. I mean, the Screensavers was basically the show that pioneered computer geeks talking about computer stuff on some form of mass media, at least in our time anyways. It still has, obviously, the brand power to be recognizable, even though the show's been dead for a decade. Here's Leo Laporte talking about bringing it back as a Twitch show, and people are like, oh yeah, the Screensavers. And people constantly ask the folks who used to be involved in that show, is the Screensavers ever coming back? I've been hearing about that for years. They've asked Leo Laporte that, they've asked Patrick Norton that, they've asked all kinds of other people that have had tech shows and IPTV shows ever since. What about the Screensavers? And the response has been that fish is dead or something along those lines. You know, those days are over. Well, I guess apparently not. But a lot of tech shows and a lot of tech YouTubers, big and small, have at least some credit to give to the Screensavers as far as inspiration goes. I'm most certainly one of them. I remember the heydays of the 90-minute Screensaver shows in 2002. Summer of the Geek 2002, last summer at college 2003, working on campus with IT folks, and we would actually brag about getting out of work early enough to go home and watch the Screensavers and not have to record it or something like that. But yeah, so the Screensavers has been pretty pivotal. There's a lot of folks out there, and there's a lot of shows that take inspiration at the very least from the Screensavers, and it's kind of become like just this big part of geek, at least geek media history, in terms of geek stuff being on some kind of mainstream form of entertainment. So the Screensavers occupies that nice piece of history, and it definitely was a good influence. Actually, if you want to see some of the old shows, I mean, people actually upload this stuff to YouTube, even though they're not supposed to. I mean, I'm sure you can find it. It's not hard at all to type the Screensavers into the YouTube search box and go find something. I also know there's this channel called ZDTVMultimedia, and I have no idea if they're officially related to Ziff Davis or not, but ZDTVMultimedia has a lot of ZDNet shows from the ZDNet days, end of the 90s into the early 2000s, before the name got changed to Tech TV. I think there is a couple of Screensavers. Of course, I got it open here, so I actually do think that there are a couple of screensaver shows with Leo Laporte and Kate Botello. Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's hilarious to watch some of these shows from way back when and see them talking about, like, Pentium 3s being awesome and stuff like that. But, if you're too young to remember the screensavers in their heyday, YouTube as the world's VCR, so to speak. Actually, some of the people might not even understand what a VCR is if they're that young. But okay, I'll quit being so old here. Anyways, those of you who may not remember or didn't give a darn about tech during the heydays of the screensavers, the YouTube as the world's VCR makes it very easy to catch up. That being said, though, I'm kind of in the middle as far as what I think of Leo Laporte bringing the show back. Now, this has been a long time in coming. Some people don't really, some folks may not remember, but the original name of TWiT, This Week in Tech, the flagship show of what is now the TWiT network that Leo's been running for the last decade or so, the original name of TWiT was actually supposed to be Revenge of the Screensavers, to keep the name going. Because basically what happened to Tech TV, Comcast bought it, folks in big suits basically slowly but surely killed what was left of Tech TV, and the screensavers went down with it. So there was very much a sense of resentment among techies towards mainstream television, and there were various names that went around for what eventually became TWiT, like Undo TV and stuff like that. But the original name was Revenge of the Screensavers, which persisted for a grand total of a very short amount of time before Comcast sent a cease and desist notification to Mr. Laporte. And so I'm guessing from what's going on now that the TWiT network has gotten big enough that these legal issues can now be dealt with. I don't know if either TWiT is paying a licensing fee to Comcast or whoever owns the rights to the former Tech TV stuff, or maybe if whoever the rights owners are just letting bygones be bygones. But it's nice that there is some kind of screensavers, something or another, even if it is called the new screensavers. Although it is going to be an issue because there is some legal stuff where you can only call something new for like 6 months or something. But they might need a new name for this. Who cares? They can. It's their problem. Let them work it out. Let the rest of us, just enjoy the show if we're gonna watch it and not lose any sleep over it. As far as the screensavers goes, if I can say anything right this morning, it is Monday after all. As far as the screensavers goes, I would have been perfectly happy with this show just occupying a part of geek history like it's been doing for the last decade. It didn't need to come back. The world has changed, the internet has changed, and tech media has changed a lot too. Like back when Tech TV was still a thing, Ziff Davis was heavily involved, and Ziff Davis actually had some podcast shows like Cranky Geeks and DLTV. And now it's, they have articles and they have a website, but I don't really see as much content. I think Revision 3 kind of stole the show and perhaps the talent too. But even Revision 3, Revision 3's had some issues lately, and I watch a few Revision 3 shows from time to time, like The Ben Heck Show, Film Riot, and Techzilla. I used to watch HD Nation back when it was its own separate show, but I was kind of bummed out when it got merged into Techzilla. And, of course, Hack 5, which is still semi-independent, and I'm glad that Darren Kitchen and the folks have kept it that way, because that's what's maintained some of the charm of that show. But there's just so many other folks out there these days. Look at the big name techies on YouTube. Look at the Linus Tech Tips folks and the Austin Power. Whoa! No! Austin Evans. Getting things mixed up here. Although I don't know how you mix up Groovy Baby with, hey guys, this is Austin. Oh man, Monday, man. I need more caffeine. I better go make some more green tea. Mixing up Austin Powers and Austin Evans. I'm not editing that out. I'm leaving it. I'm not editing that out. I am leaving that in. With how much I'm laughing about it, I can only imagine how much folks listening are laughing about this right now. Mixing up Austin Powers and Austin Evans. Ladies and gentlemen, the show must go on. Oh, man. But yeah, there's Tech Syndicate, there's Hardware Canucks, there's okay, even folks like Tech Anvil, who is pretty much one of those gone but not forgotten type folks. He hasn't made a video since I think 2007 or something. He's had issues getting back onto YouTube for nearly a decade now. Or maybe he just lost interest or something like that. I don't know what happened to the guy, but he actually was one of the folks who talked about IPTV, and I give him credit for making me somewhat interested in doing these types of things, these kinds of YouTube things. And then, of course, he introduced me to a lot of these IPTV shows because I was so caught up in graduating from college and other stuff like that, but I wasn't even familiar with podcasting or IPTV. And so here I was playing catch up. Hey, look, it's Patrick Norton again. Hey, look, there's some other stuff. There's some other folks from the Screensavers again. But the Screensavers was pretty much what started it all. The Screensavers is kind of like, if you do like a family tree type thing with tech shows, you'll find the Screensavers close to the top, or close to the roots, if not the roots themselves. I mean, there's just so many folks out there, both in big shows and little YouTube things, that obviously have some inspiration from that, or they were inspired by it. Maybe they'll come out and admit it, maybe they come out and won't, but they're at least following in the footsteps of the Screensavers by doing tech news commentary and getting all this nerd stuff and geek stuff on some kind of mass media. And that's really what makes the Screensavers such a big thing. And that's what makes it something that I wouldn't have mind remaining a part of geek history. The new Screensavers, on the other hand, is entering a very different world, and a very different tech world, and a very different tech media world. First of all, the name itself is dated. I mean, who even uses Screensavers anymore? Screensavers are more of a thing from the days before some of the stuff that we have on TV. Some of the stuff we have on computers these days, the advanced power management and stuff like that. It's really the sort of thing that would keep your old tube monitor from burning in or something along those lines. I almost said burning out. Anyways, the old Screensavers themselves are kind of a dated thing. I mean, I think people remember the term screensaver these days more for the Screensavers than actual screensavers, but we're getting close to a day and age where people aren't going to associate Screensavers with anything but this show. So it does speak to the brand power of the Screensavers that this has become, such a thing that was worth bringing back. But everything's changed so much. First of all, to the geeks that are saying, oh, Tech TV should have never gone away, Comcast is a bunch of morons for killing Tech TV. Tech TV would have died of natural causes. I hate to be the one to be Mr. Voice of Reason once again and break the news to people, but Tech TV would have eventually died because podcasting would have just superseded it like you wouldn't believe. The Revision 3s of the world, the podcast shows of the world, even the Ziff Davis stuff from the mid-2000s, the various ways in which the podcasting Web 2.0 stuff has superseded traditional media. It wouldn't have been a matter of if, but when Tech TV got killed if it wasn't killed by Comcast. That is, unfortunately, the truth. Now, it's the same exact thing that happened to MTV. People complain about there's no more music on MTV. Why aren't there music videos on MTV? Why is it all reality shows? Why can't we just bring back the old MTV? Because the old MTV wouldn't survive. The old MTV wouldn't be competitive. Why on earth would you sit there and watch a TV station waiting for your favorite music video to come on when you can just jump onto YouTube and look at like Vivo or something, because people upload music videos all over the place even if they're not supposed to? I mean, the market for traditional television MTV, as some of us would have known it back in the 80s, is as good as destroyed. There's so many ways to get on-demand video content of musicians and stuff like that it's just... there wouldn't be any real room for it except for nostalgia. And that's my concern with the new Screensavers, is that it will turn into just a nostalgia trip that burns hot and fizzles out, like a crazy firework, something or another. But, that's my concern about all of this. I'm also concerned, it's been about 10 years or so, be like, oh yeah, great to see the old gang from Tech TV back together because Patrick Norton, Megan Maroney, Martin Sargent, and some other folks that were on the Tech TV show back in the day are already mentioned as guest hosts or co-hosts. But I mean, it's been 10 years or so. I mean, Leo looks much older. I don't know if these folks are going to mess with makeup or anything like they would have in their TV days, but Leo has kind of become like the goofy, geeky grandpa of tech at this point. I mean, I tried listening to some of his tech guy shows a while back. I just couldn't really get into it like I could with the screensavers. Plus, he's had some scandals involving how he treats women on his shows and how he treats interns and stuff like that. So I know that this guy's kind of a little crazy old man these days. And that's another issue with the screensavers coming back is this going to be like going to like Foxwoods or something? Sorry, a little Connecticut speak there, but basically going to like a Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun show and to see like an old classic rock band that's still playing. I mean, my folks have been to a couple of those shows and I've seen some videos on YouTube of some of these shows. And it's nice that, you know, some of these folks in their 60s and 70s are still playing some good rock music, but there is an element of cheesiness to see a bunch of folks that are old, that have grandkids, basically acting like they're still in their 20s or 30s on stage. There's actually a 70s supergroup type thing called the Classic Rock All-Stars. Let me make sure they're still around. I don't follow these folks too much, but Classic Rock All-Stars. I should have done this. I should have looked this up before. Oh yeah, see, is a supergroup. Good. So the infamous W word wasn't on there, but I recognize. So Peter Rivera was the original drummer and lead singer for Rare Earth, which was a band that my dad was big into when he was in his 20s. So you're talking 70s here. And there's some other folks, and there's some other folks that have been there as well, but you see interviews of this guy. He's like, oh yeah, it's great getting my grandkids into these songs, you know, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's cool and all, but there's still the element of like, I've seen like, I remember Whitesnake, when Whitesnake first started touring, when David Coverdale made a new Whitesnake band, and here's a guy who's like 50-something years old belting out tunes. He still got it. He can still sing. But my folks have been to show after show after show with all these older classic rock bands where they're like, oh man, these guys look so weird playing this music, trying to act like they're a lot younger than they actually are. And so I'm wondering if maybe some of that might happen with the new screensavers. We might have some kind of geek version of an old classic rock band trying to look like, you know, they're still really young in their like 60s and 70s. Issues aside, though, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. You're going to see all these folks much older now. So all those folks that thought Megan was hot back on Tech TV, she's basically a tech mom now and stuff like that. So it's, man, I'm wondering how much cognitive dissonance there's going to be when people are like, oh man, look at these folks from the screensavers. They've gotten old, just like the rest of us. So there's that element of is there basically bygones being bygones with or not bygones being, but is this basically like some folks living in the past or trying to bring back, you know, some big moment and whatever. It'd be nice to see something like the screensavers exist again, but the question is, does there need to be something like the screensavers anymore? I mean, the internet is saturated in tech content all over the place. I mean, I'm already subscribed to more just tech channels on YouTube, including some formal shows like Hack 5 and Ben Heck and Techzilla that I can't get around to watching so much of the time. I often have to get like their DVD season sets and play catch up or something. There's already so much content out there. I mean, the screensavers was a big thing when it was there was no podcasting except for, you know, some audio stuff like this. And basically the screensavers was your DLTV, your Techzilla, your Hack 5. It was what you could see in video format. But nowadays there's all kinds of that stuff out there. I mean, how many people are going to keep watching the new screensavers for reasons other than just, you know, as a nod to the original screensavers? I mean, can this thing actually make a name for itself above and beyond just what happened in the 2000s, especially when screensavers themselves, like I mentioned earlier, are becoming kind of a thing of the past? Time will tell, I guess. Time will tell. I'll check out a few shows, if I can even say stuff correctly. I'll check out a few shows at the least, but I'm not expecting this new screensaver show to rock everybody's world the way the original did, because It's a different world. It's a different era. It's a different decade, for Pete's sake. And what happened to the screensavers on Tech TV and G4 eventually, after Comcast bought the assets to Tech TV, what happened to the original screensavers would have eventually happened anyways. So I guess the question here is this just, trying to rekindle the past flames or something like that? Or is this just folks with their heads stuck in the past? I mean, does there need to be another screensaver show? It'd be nice if there was one, but considering what's happened in the last decade, both with issues at TWiT, issues with Leo, and just the changing landscape in general, is this kind of like, well, some of these retro sodas I've been seeing, like Retro Pepsi and Retro Mountain Dew, or Throwback Pepsi, Throwback Mountain Dew, that's what they're called, actually. Is this going to be like the tech show version of Throwback Soda? Anyways, if any of you folks have anything to say in the comments, go ahead and chime in. As for me, I'll check out a few shows here and there, but really, this can go either way. And I'm not just going to immediately go, oh, cool, the screensavers is coming back, and be all psyched about it, because this really could go either way. And, of course, the one thing that's not being brought up in all of this is what happened to all those legal hurdles with Comcast and the screensavers name. Are the folks involved here willing to let bygones be bygones and let some kind of screensavers show come back? Has this been resolved, or are we going to see this last a grand total of like a week or two until like TWiT goes broke from legal costs or something, or licensing costs because of this sort of thing? We'll see what happens. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by. You're listening to MultimediaJay Radio Style. Don't touch that dial.